Hi guys, welcome back to the Fight Podcast with Sharir Richmond.
Hi, how are you doing?
And with me, Jan. We always do this. You ask me how I'm doing before I'm done. So I need to go like, Jan, hi, I'm fine, and how are you? But how are you?
No, you tell me, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Sun's out. I like this. I just rode here on my bike, which I like. Not the motorcycle, but like the bicycle. And that's, that makes a lot of good impressions on I feel good.
On what?
Yeah, if you can ride your bike and it's warm and it's sunny, I like
Bicycle.
it. Bicycle, yeah. What did I say?
You said bike.
Yeah, bike. Is bike just a motorized
If
motorcycle?
you say bike, people think it's a man's bike.
But I have a man's bike, but I didn't come here on it.
You came with a bicycle.
I came with the bicycle. Is it really just bikes? Is bikes everything that has two wheels?
What am I, your fuck?
Dude, you're a native speaker.
What am I, your English teacher?
You can become mine.
If you say bike, people think you're like a manly bike.
Okay, I have a manly bike, people, but I came here on my bicycle. So just to clarify that. But I'm good. How about you?
I'm good, thank you.
You did come here on your bike.
No, I did not.
Did Dom get you?
I walked.
You walked. Okay. So we got that out of the way.
All right.
In, I think, the first episode? I think that in the first episode we talked about ICCS. We introduced people to what is ICCS.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could give like a rundown for the people who didn't listen from the first episode. Like, what is ICCS basically?
ICCS is
the thing. It's the thing where we hear.
It's an awesome thing.
You could go a little more into detail about this.
Well, we're an international organization of Krav Maga. We like to say we're like MMA for the street. That's ICCS.
So it's the organization where all the schools kind of. You're the head coach of ICCS.
I'm the founder the head instructor.
And the head instructor, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I'm asking this is, I wanted to ask how ICCS came to be in the first place. Because we talked about ICCS in a lot of episodes. Most people already know, or we talked about a lot of the concepts, the principles, what we do here, but we didn't really talk about how you came up with ICCS, why you thought it was necessary to create ICCS and what its mission is.
Okay.
So I think we should talk about a little about those things in this episode today.
All right, sounds fun.
Okay, you go.
How
did ICCS start?
So long time ago, I was working for another company. I was teaching Krav. This was when I was fresh out of the military service.
Mm-hmm. Was this a private thing or also
private? It was like a private military company, and I was doing like their hand-to-hand instructions, whatever it was. Like we were teaching in the military, we were teaching in the private sector. So private military, we were teaching police, Secret Service, things like that. So I was doing that. And at the same time, I was also coaching MMA. Mm-hmm. MMA Jerusalem, my team. Honestly, I really had no interest in teaching Krav to civilians. I never even, it wasn't something I really thought about. I love teaching, I love coaching, so I was doing MMA. And that for like people like, there were some people that you would teach, some of the companies, that actually sometimes there were cases where they had to use what I taught them the same day,
mm-hmm.
like after training. So it's important work, and that's what I was doing. And one time I gave a course, and one of the guys from another country, he came from a country in Europe. He told me, at the beginning of the course, he's like, I'm a Krav Maga instructor. So I was like, okay, I don't really care that much, whatever. It was I think it was like a VIP protection course, and after like a couple of hours of the course, we had a break. He came to me. He said, I never saw anything like this. I mean, I trained under, and he started dropping names. This guy, that guy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care. I don't care about names until this day. I just do my own thing, And I said, fine. And he said, you have to start teaching. You have to start doing seminars. And I was like, nah, that's good. I just like doing what I do,
Mm-hmm.
But it was 3 weeks, of course, and he kept on crowding me, every day, pretty much. And he also even sent me, he said, look, he sent me this video, a YouTube video. He said, you know what this is? And I said, no, I think it's Kung Fu. He said, no, this is Krav Maga. I said, nah, it's not Krav Maga. It is. It was totally nonsense, the video, of course. I never even checked to look what other people are teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Make a long story short, he organized a seminar in France. Yeah, that was the first one I did. I've done before in the U.S., but the first one in Europe was in France. And then things started to pick up, and that's how it started.
Mm-hmm. And you just said you never checked what other people taught. Was this in the army? You said that that the time in the army you had to have some sort of hand-to-hand combat training, right?
Yeah.
So was this? We already talked about this issue, but Krav Maga is not really a protected like a term that's just this set of rules, this set of things.
There's so many people who do so many different things.
Yeah.
I mean, in Hebrew, it means contact combat. And in the Army, a lot of times it's up to the instructor. There is an instructor course in the Army, and they show you some like techniques from A to Z, whatever, but many times it has to do with the instructor,
mm-hmm.
his level or his experience. Not all instructors have that much experience.
So basically a combat training hand-to-hand in the Army is basically always Krav Maga, but Krav Maga doesn't really have this concept.
You have combat trainers who do Krav and combat, close quarter combat, so
mm-hmm.
room clearing or whatever. You have people who do only Krav. Depends where you go. Depends
mm-hmm.
on the place.
But you call it Krav Maga despite whatever is inside that package, but it's always...
Not always. It could be either a Krav Maga instructor,
mm-hmm.
or it could also be a combat instructor.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I refer to a combat instructor as a person who does a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said you never checked on what other people were teaching in Krav Maga.
Right.
So your contact with the Krav Maga that you were facing in the Army, what did that look like? More like a competitive based, like boxing, wrestling.
I'm also a Krav instructor in the Army. And I was teaching in the Army way before I was teaching in that place. I just did like my own, you do the course, but whatever was making sense for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was working in this company, I was also doing pretty much that. There's a curriculum, you have to show them this, knife, whatever was control restraint or whatever it was, the topic, whatever was making sense to me. But also, I was teaching a lot of people, really a lot of people a month. Each month, a lot of people will go through me. And over the time, you start getting a lot of experience because a lot of these people actually used what you teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also during a pretty violent period. So there was a lot of fights.
So you have kind of like a reality check for what you teach.
And every single time something happened, you go back, you check the videos. I would also try to interview the people who were involved.
Mm-hmm.
And what worked, what didn't work, how'd you feel? And then try to fix it, make it better, make it better, make it better. A lot of stuff changed and keep changing over the years, always trying to evolve
mm-hmm.
to bring the best product to the people.
And how can I imagine the baseline that you were taught? Was this more like what people expect of Krav Maga maybe when they go on YouTube and they watch some videos?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much that was the baseline. There's also a lot of aggression drills and stuff like that. That was the baseline. There's one school, in the army, for example, who certifies all the Krav instructors. So that's pretty much the baseline. But funny enough, like a lot of times when young soldiers, let's say, come to us for learning after they already went through training somewhere else, I hear a lot of instructors who work with me tell them, listen, forget whatever you learned. We're doing it over. And sadly, in many cases, it's a right call.
When you say they come to us, do you mean ICCS or do you mean your function as a trainer in the army?
As a trainer in the army.
And you have to reset everything. You have to restart.
Many times, yeah. Many times, yeah. Because like I said, it's up to the instructor.
And you also, because you said that after the army you were already teaching MMA, when did the whole martial arts thing for you get more of a professional thing where you also taught people and not just took part in wrestling and all of these different disciplines?
I don't remember.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that was something.
I always like to teach. I always loved the aspect of making someone else strong. I think is a beautiful thing. So even when I was much younger, I would always help the person who needed the help. You know, I got into a lot of fights, for example, but I never started a fight. Every fight I ever got into, it was always like protecting someone else. You know, I used to love to fight, and it was a good chance to fight. You know, you have a chance to fight like an asshole. So let's do it. You know, but I never started. It wasn't about like an ego thing. It was just always like protecting someone else. So I like the same idea. I like teaching, so I was doing it for a long time.
Is MMA Jerusalem the first school you opened for MMA?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you opened MMA Jerusalem?
Probably around 2002.
2002. Okay, that's a long time ago. And that was after your after the time in the army, but you were not yet an instructor.
I was I'm an instructor in the army also since I believe 2002. But I was still doing MMA Jerusalem. I was still in the army for quite some time afterwards.
That's what I was getting at. So you had some experience with martial arts before the training with the army.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So everything.
What question is that?
But everything that you learned in the army was already through the filter of, okay, I kind of know what makes sense and what doesn't.
Exactly. I was able to filter it pretty quickly.
So you never went through the whole experience that some people who first come to Krav Maga not knowing anything, or like self-protection courses, who don't know anything about the topic.
Yeah, I was able to filter it. I've been doing martial arts all my life, like since around 6 years old, I guess. In fact, funny story. In this course in the military, there's also they test you like there's a sparring kind of test. You have to spar, but then like the instructors who were there, who were taking, I think one of them had probably some kind of boxing background. The other one, I think he just had like bullshit background, whatever. And he said you can spar. You know, it's aggressive. Be aggressive. It's time to spar. And okay, so I get up to spar some guy, and he said, "Yeah, go away. Everything goes." They say, "Everything goes." I said, "Oh, everything goes?" He says, "Yeah, you know, what kind of question is that? You know, be rough." I said, "Okay." So when we started to spar, I shot down double leg. I lift the guy up really high, smack him down, smack. I could see on the instructor's eyes, he's never seen that before. He's like, "Stop! You know, sit down. You know, you're being dangerous." We said everything goes. What was that? Like they've never seen it before, you know? But yeah.
So that says a lot about the way that they teach it. Because
it's a lot about the way that he taught it. Again, it changes by you could have a really great instructor with a great background and then it's going to be really good. Or you could have a crappy instructor and then it's going to be a crappy period.
A lot of the stuff gets lost in translation, I think.
You could also see it on the soldiers who are under a crappy instructor. For a certain period, and then you see another generation who are under a better instructor. They're usually better.
Because the thing that I find interesting is when you think about Lichtenfeld, who kind of played a huge role in developing Krav Maga. He was also, I think, a boxer, and I think he also wrestled.
I think wrestling or judo or something. Yeah.
And judo. I think he also boxed, and I think it's interesting how that kind of gets broken down to what you see today sometimes, and there's no real link to most of these disciplines with with what you see with most of the stuff you see, for instance, on YouTube, and the difference it makes on whether you have someone who can kind of filter out, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't, and apply that to the training. How do you go about, if you see something, you teach something, and you notice, I've seen you do that in courses where you're like, this makes sense, but under pressure, most people can't perform this. How do you notice that development? Where you see, okay, especially with knife fighting, I've seen you do this, where you said, I know this works, I've done this, but still I see that with most people it's too difficult. How do you manage this? Where do you say, okay, someone was just not very good at the technique, or how do you evaluate, okay, this is too complex?
Depending on who you teach, right? If I'm teaching people who I know are not going to be training afterwards, they'll train during the course and afterwards not, it has to be simple, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just based on principles. But if it's someone who trains for a long time, simple, stupid first, principles, and once he's good at that, the sky's the limit of what you can give him.
Mm-hmm.
He's already becoming a professional.
Mm-hmm. So if you look at the people you train in the army, how much, like percentage-wise, of what you do is just aggression drills?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah.
Because it can't be too technical?
Exactly.
For how long do you usually have a recruit?
Depends. It depends. Depends who you're teaching. The difference between place to place. Some people have a very short course. Some people have a longer.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends. It's a big topic.
Okay, so what would be like an exemplary, like someone? I'm not sure how to where you teach these things in the army. Like how I'm not sure how to ask this, but what's like an average time someone spends in training with you?
His average training is like a year and 4 months, something like that.
Just combat training.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a school. It's a year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere between a year, 4 months to a year and 8 months, let's say.
And how much MMA influence do you take in these classes, or how much of it is
in the military?
Yeah.
Not much. Well, there is an influence. Again, depends on who you teach, right? So where I teach, for example, a big part of what they need to know is control and restraint.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, a big part of what they need to know is groundwork. And then, of course, knife fighting is a big part just because it's a big threat.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like specific things that they're needed that I'm not going to go into here right now. But so for whatever their need is.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's important to understand that where I teach specifically, they have the highest level of Krav in the military, just because of the job they do. So it's going to be different if you go and teach a regular infantry or whatever tank unit. I mean, the level drops.
They have less necessity for.
I don't think they have less necessity. I mean, well, they have less necessity at work, that's for sure. But I think that everybody has a big necessity for Krav. First of all, because it makes a man out of you, and it turns you into a weapon, right? So, I mean, that's what a warrior is all about. You're the weapon. Whatever else you have in your hands is a tool, but it builds a personality that you carry with you the rest of your life. Also, I found that it helps people with their shooting, because shooting under combat is an aggressive thing, obviously, and that aggression that you do in hand-to-hand combat helps you with the shooting too. So I think it's a necessity for everybody, and I think it's a shame that some places don't have a high level. And even in other countries, it's even worse. Other countries I've been to have zero training, absolute zero training, police or military.
Do you find that people that you teach in the military in ICCS, or not in ICCS but in Krav Maga, often find themselves training further with you privately? Is that a thing that's happening, or do they think, okay, I've done this and then I'm good with this?
There are some people who stay in contact and train privately, but most people no. Most people are lazy.
So you basically do the basic, not the basic training, but the educational, the part where you have to train to become part of the unit, but then most of them stop?
Most of them, well, as long as they're in the army, they need to train regularly. They must. There's a lot of people who I assume train afterwards as well. Also because most of them are like athletic, they're into training.
So you keep training these people even when they're in the unit. It's not just where you train recruits.
After the schooling? Yeah, they must stay in as long as they're served. They must train.
And then you just keep on adding on the aggression part of the principles, or do you give more technique?
Once they finish their schooling, and once they're already doing their job, there's a lot more opportunities to start going more into technique with them and more, more fun things, you would say, or stuff like that.
The cool looking stuff, yeah.
not the cool looking. Well, everything we do is cool, but
of course it is, yeah.
Go more into groundwork, go more into wrestling, stuff that we didn't have time before to do. And that's up to the instructor who's teaching that class.
And I've seen you take some of the elements that you learned from your experience as an instructor with the Army into ICCS as well. For instance, the aggression drills. Is there something else you would think of that you took from your experiences in the Army that benefits your ability to coach someone in ICCS or even in MMA?
It doesn't matter who you're coaching, right? If you're coaching someone for a fight's a fight. Taking a knife attack, for example, the person stabbing you, it doesn't matter if you're in the Army or if you're a civilian. It's the same body mechanics, the same stab. So it's the same exact thing. So a word development drill that will work for this guy will work for this guy as well. That's if that's what you mean, that's what we took. Yeah.
So it's about having this pressure on a fighter that you can also take into MMA, for instance. I've heard you talk about preparation for a fight where you take multiple attackers just to get the aggression into one of your fighters.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do that a lot with the people also, despite or if they're not preparing for a fight, even when they try to learn for MMA? No. That's just for fight preparation?
Yeah. Because people who want to do MMA, sometimes they don't like that stuff. But people who prepare for fights, it's different. They're more serious and there's more things you could do with them.
If someone comes to ICCS without any experience, would you kind of treat them the same way that you just talked about the people you teach in the recruits, like first principles, first whatever, and then more technique?
Absolutely. It's different in the military because of the distance, between you and the recruits. But apart from that, yeah, absolutely.
Why do you do it this way? Why won't you start with, maybe some people might feel more comfortable with learning technique first before they have like this pressure?
Well, if you go to a doctor who's supposed to save your knee with surgery, and he tells you, listen, I'm going to do ABC, and he's a world expert, and you're going to ask him, why don't you do it this way? You probably agree with him, right? Well, I'm the expert, thank you very much, and I think I know what I'm doing.
No, I'm just asking for...
I'm just saying, like, principle is way more important than technique, right? A person loses about 50% of his technical capability just because of pressure. So if you start doing choreographed moves with people, they might be feeling good about themselves, but you're giving them a bad product, and that's not right. You want to give people a real product. If people are spending their time and their money on and their trust, thinking that you could show them the way to protect themselves, to protect their families, you better have a good product. And doing choreographed nonsense right off the bat, a person can't even throw a punch, or under pressure he'll flap just because he's never practiced pressure training. What are you doing? Are you trying to show him how cool you are with the technique? I mean, that's a problem.
I've had this situation once where there was someone who's interested in training here, and they came over and they asked, because I think his daughter wanted to work in a psychiatric ward, and he was like, yeah, she should learn some Krav Maga, whatever. And then we talked a little, and so we told him, yeah, a lot of this is like street MMA, and as we talked about in the last episode, street boxing, street wrestling, all of these concepts. And he persisted on, yeah, but you still do like the Krav Maga stuff.
That's because he saw something on TV.
Yeah.
You could tell him, yeah, we still do the Krav Maga stuff. So, okay, he feels good, and you're not lying, you do.
Yeah.
Krav Maga's contact combat, and then you do what you think is right.
Yeah. But that's why I'm asking what I asked before, because a lot of people have this image of, okay, there's very little pressure that I have to go through, but still I can do a lot when I have these like dirty tricks. They all want to know like these dirty little secrets. And I think that's something, you have like some concept, you have principles, but there's little like dirty secrets you can teach someone. It's not about, okay, you just do this one thing and everything is gone, everything is fine. It's not how it works. Do you teach? I know that you give combat training with the military. I know you also give shooting training in places where you can do that sort of stuff. For instance, in the US, do you also teach people on using like a lot of places have like weapons courses with like little things they can use and stuff. Do you teach that at all, or do you think, okay, that doesn't really make sense? We have to concentrate on the fighter and not on the tools.
Sometimes I teach that. Not so much in my regular classes.
Mm-hmm.
With my regular classes, the people that I help create, I would say, I know that if they have a pen on the table, they'll stick it in someone's eye if they had to. I don't have to tell them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But, for example, I gave this course once in Israel. It was for women mostly, actually. And it was about home invasion. Right? So there, I would explain to them, for example, you have a lot of weapons at home you could use.
Mm-hmm.
And you know where they are usually much better than an invader, So things like that, yeah. And a course like that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I've also heard you say this, I'm not sure if it's a saying or if it's just your creation, but that not the tool's the weapon, that you are the weapon. What do you mean by that?
It's the personality thing that you want to build in a person. That means a fighter, a warrior, personality, he could fight you anywhere, anytime, in any condition.
Mm-hmm.
He could fight you with a gun, he could fight you with a knife, or he could fight you with his bare hands. Why? Because of his personality. That's what I mean by he's the weapon.
Mm-hmm. So you use a weapon, but it's just a tool.
It's a tool, exactly. It's a tool like anything else. A hammer is a tool, a weapon's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
But if a person he's just tough because he's hiding behind a weapon, then he's not really a warrior, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Take away his weapon, now what are you going to do? So if that's the case, you're not a real warrior. You're just a guy with a weapon.
I was very baffled when I found out that not everybody who has a weapon actually constantly trains with it.
Most people don't.
I was really worried about this when I found this out, but because I've met people who own a gun but don't really know how to shoot it.
Right.
They have done it maybe like once or twice. They have it. They know they have it. Right. They have it in like some drawer or something. But I was really shocked about. I thought everybody who thinks about these kind of things would also take up training.
In the U.S., for example, there are a lot of those people going around that have not just one gun but a lot of guns,
mm-hmm.
and they know how to press the trigger, but that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people who asked me to help them change their magazine, for example, which is maybe the most basic thing as far as shooting, right? Before training, they're talking to me about all these weapons and different names, and I don't know anything about that, like so many names and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can't even change their own magazine, right? I've had a guy who, in the beginning of the course, first 5 minutes, walked up to me and he said, I hope this is a high-level course because I have 15 years of this and that experience, whatever. Doesn't matter. I said, yeah, well, I hope he meets your expectations, And then the first 3 minutes of actual shooting, he injured himself because of not knowing how to hold a gun. He needed stitches.
Ooh, okay.
So you have a lot of that going around, especially in the U.S. In Israel, not so much, because in Israel it's a little different. To get a gun license, you must shoot that gun before you get the license on it
mm-hmm.
with an instructor, and you must hit 50 bullets, 50 out of 50, I think it is. So everyone goes through a little bit of training with a gun. It's nowhere near enough, but at least it's something. Plus, most people in Israel have military experience.
Mm-hmm.
So shooting comes much more natural to them
mm-hmm.
than other people. And also, I believe it's every 2 years in Israel, you get a little letter, if you're a gun owner, from the government saying it's time for you to go train. And you must, to continue your gun license, you must go shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Which, it's a hassle. Nobody likes it, but I think it makes sense.
Is it like a renewal is it like a test you have to retake?
Renewal, yeah. It's a renewal of your license to make sure you know how to shoot your gun.
So do you have to show that you've shot this amount of times,
No,
or is it
you
about?
just go through if you go to an official shooting range, they could do the paperwork for you. You know, they send it in. You just have to shoot.
So they have to check up on your abilities with a gun.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's actually about the shooting, not about the volume of shots you fire.
It's about you have a gun, and also I think it's show some responsibility and go train.
Mm-hmm. I think the issue is with a lot of people that they start having this like fascination with the gun itself, or like it's a hobby for them, and less this approach of self-protection.
I can understand the fascination with a gun. I mean, a lot of guys like guns. Guns are cool, you know. Okay, but you should also be a professional. You know, if you have a gun, know how to use it and train. Especially pistols, a lot of training. It's a lot of training to be good with a pistol. Someone has a pistol, it's his responsibility to train.
Why do you think a pistol is more or harder than a rifle?
Well, it's not what I think. It's just the truth fact. You know.
Okay, tell me why the pistol is harder to learn than the rifle.
Because it's the grip. It's smaller. You know, all that stuff.
So it's harder to aim with it, or to.
It's way harder to aim. Way harder to hit. Under pressure, you know, rifle you have a much better grip. You could be further away from the person or thing you're shooting at. Pistol has to be closer. So usually has a lot more, the situation needing a pistol is a lot more with pressure because of the close distance. And the grip, like I said, all that makes a pistol harder to hit than a rifle, much harder.
And I think something that I've seen with a lot of people with, let's say, knives or with pepper spray, that sometimes they think, okay, I have this, now I'm secure. But with pistols, I think it's also a thing that a lot of people don't really get. You also give these too close to shoot seminars, right? What are those about?
Too close to shoot training is all about what you need to know as far as contact combat if you have a handgun, right? Because most fights start from very close range. So take an example, knife against gun, right? You have a pistol, someone jumps on you with a knife in your back, starts stabbing you, you turn around, see what's going on, he keeps on stabbing you. Try to get to your gun. If you never trained before, it's going to be really difficult or close to impossible to do. People don't realize that. Or crowd passing, or what happens if you fall down on the floor? Someone's mounting you, punching you, okay, get to your gun now. Right? Weapon retention, right? Most cases of someone trying to take a gun away from a police officer is at the time that he's drawing the weapon out. If the weapon is already out, usually it's okay. But at the time things get heating up, someone goes for the gun, someone jumps on you, now what? So that the too close to shoot is all about that.
You also said that there's a difference between, let's say, a military unit where there's a lot of people working as a unit, as a team, and for instance, people who work in personal protection or in security positions where you say, okay, sometimes or a lot of the times it's just one person. And I think that's where especially a lot of this too close to shoot stuff applies very well, because you have no one else to keep you to keep your back free, you know?
Exactly. It applies a lot with civilians and with policemen, private security, people who work alone. You know, there's a lot of reasons to learn fighting if you're armed. You know, a lot of reasons, right? First of all, I mean, up close you got jams, you got things like that, but you gotta go through all the reasons right now. I would say, if nothing more than the reason of build your personality of a warrior, you're not going to get it through target practice. You'll get it through hand-to-hand combat. And that goes linked with shooting. So the aggression you learn in hand-to-hand combat translates to shooting very well, you think? Yeah, I don't think, I'm sure. Okay, you know that it does. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry about the thinking. It's just it's usually how I ask these things. I understand. It goes. It's not a personal attack on your knowledge. It's all good. It's all good. I don't get offended very easily. It's all good. You know, it goes together, right? It goes hand in hand. There's a lot of shooting instructors, with respect to shooting instructors, who are just shooting instructors, and people call them in the military. They're called cardboard warriors. Because all they know how to do is shoot cardboard. You know what I mean? And it's true. It's sad, but it's true. It has to come hand in hand with contact combat, with physical contact with someone else.
Do you think it works the other way around as well? Does shooting, exercising, or learning how to shoot also translate well into fighting in some sort?
Not without fight training. No, absolutely not.
But is there something you can learn as a proficient fighter from learning how to shoot?
It has to come together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of wimps out there who shoot pretty well.
Mm-hmm. So that's just
target
practice.
At least they shoot targets. Yeah, target practice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. But put them under pressure, punch them in the face once or twice, kick him in the balls. Let's see you shoot now. There's a lot of that.
Do you also do warrior development drills for shooting?
Yes, you do. Yeah, of course.
Is it just about disorientation, or is it also about pressure and stress?
Pressure and stress. It's all about pressure and stress. It's one thing to shoot to hit a target when you're calm and relaxed. Even if you have a certain amount of time where you have to hit a target, you're still kind of calm and relaxed
because you're used to the.
Because you've done it 100 times before, so it's one thing. But that's some pressure before. Then let's see how you hit the target when when your hands are shaking. So of course, there's a lot of that.
Is the shooting instruction also part of ICCS? Would you consider that as a part of it, or is it just?
We have the ICCS Pro division. That's where the pro branch. That's where we do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But is it just for professionals? Is it just for police?
It's open to everybody whoever wants.
So also civilians could take shooting lessons with ICCS.
Yeah, I'm doing a pro course. In fact, I believe next week in France. It's not gonna be with shooting, but it's open to anybody who wants.
But mostly control and restraint there, or what makes it pro without the gun? Yeah,
the topics like it could be control and restraint or something in that line.
Mm-hmm. So the difference between ICCS and ICCS professional are the topics, the way that you would use fighting, and it's not about self-protection as much as it is about having a function with fighting.
It's also the people usually who come to the courses is a lot for professional people, law enforcement, things like that.
Was ICCS Pro already part of ICCS from the beginning, from the get-go?
No.
How did that develop?
From demand. That's it. I personally prefer teaching like striking and wrestling, and grappling,
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really planning on doing it outside of what I was already doing it. But then there was a demand, and it came from the fact that I wanted to give a good product, because there's a lot of people who do kind of courses like that, and there's a lot of bullshit out there. If you think there's only bullshit when it comes to Krav, you should see shooting. So that's why it came out.
About shooting principles or just how they train?
It's just about everything. Yeah, it's just a lot of nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Do you also practice other forms of self-defense with weapons, so without guns? Is that also something where you would focus on, for instance, I've seen people teach like stuff with pepper spray and stuff. I don't take you for that kind of person, but...
No, I never teach the pepper spray.
Because I know that you also teach some security forces.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if...
They don't have pepper spray.
Yeah, but do all of them have guns? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so it's fighting or shooting, but no pepper spray.
I'm not like against pepper spray.
You could give them tactical pens and they could poke them. Okay. So guys, I hope this was like a good overview of ICCS history and how it came to be, what it does right now. Sharir, would you like to add anything?
No, not really. It was fun.
Okay, so thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.